Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Crypto with English. Now, unfortunately, Belinda cannot be here today. Some urgent, pressing matters came up at the last minute. However, Prashant Gami is here with us today, who, by the way, offers a wealth of knowledge and wealth of experience. So, he is the CEO and founder of X Enabler. So, I can tell you this from the startup process. There are seldom companies that are a one-stop shop for everything. Well, I found another one, and there's not too many, X Enabler. So his company is a continuous IT innovation company. Now, they work on many different types of applications in many different areas. So this includes AI, IoT, blockchain, ML, and they do many projects involving blockchain, implementing smart contracts, and NFT projects. So being with a professional such as this, providing essentially a company like this with this service as a one-stop shop for both startups and mature companies, we're going to get into the weeds today about some of his projects and some of Prashant's take on some of these interesting blockchain trends that are going on. So Prashant, thank you so much for coming today. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for that introduction, Adam. Welcome, and I'm glad to be here.
Oh, listen. The pleasure. It's all on my end here. Seriously. So, X Enabler, tell me, how did you come up with this idea? What was the startup process like putting this together? Because I have to say, this is very, very ambitious. And I'll tell you this, being the co-founder of a startup myself, a lot of times when you deal with outside third-party software companies, a lot of times they really just handle one or two facets of building an application or a DApp or really just the initial MVP. And looking at your company, each part is handled. So tell me about that process. What gave you the idea? How did you put this together? What were some of the successes and obstacles of that?
Sure. So it goes in history. Like I started when mobile came out as a developer, and I led like number of companies in their first version of mobile apps, and that's where my journey started as a developer, as a technical person, and always on back of my mind, I wanted to do something of my own, and the perfect place was I have always good between understanding the technology as well as the business needs. That's where
Right.
my most skilled part, like strong points are, and that's essentially what X enabler is. So we often see that business has a requirement in their mind that this is what I want, while the developer need a very detailed technical specification that this is what I can implement, and there is a huge gap between that. And usually the companies are positioned either to define, like, what the technology or the solution can be, or
Right.
the implementation part, and not both. And
Right.
that causes that usually the gap and a misalignment in the actual product development.
Right.
And big companies have number of teams and people to throw at it and solve that in house, but when you go to small to large businesses, you can't do that. And
Right.
that's where X enabler comes in place, that if you want to innovate something, or you are creating an innovative product, we become your technology arm, your technology innovation team that can take your idea all the way to app store. So basically, we work with you in terms of creating, like, what the product can look like, what technologies you can utilize, what are the benefits, ROI of that, because that's always the significant question. Yes, you can do everything, but can you actually generate money out of it?
Right.
Can you actually get the return? And we help answer the technological part of it, that how much it's going to cost, how long it's going to cost, and how many people you will need, and the time you will need. And that gives you a very clear idea whether you should develop it, and if you should develop, how, what's the best way. Leveraging of the self platform, like you said, blockchain is a classic example
Right.
where most people don't realize that they will never actually implement blockchain algorithm themselves,
Right.
uh, which is the complex bit. And the thing is, you're never going to do it yourself. Most likely, you either going to
Right.
use Ethereum or Hyperledger or Solana or something,
Right. Exactly.
and build on top of that. So you
Yes.
have to define your construct your contract, but you are not actually implementing the blockchain itself. And
Right.
That is the
That's a very good
misconception people
distinction. So
do.
thank you for actually making that distinction, because I think when people talk about building a blockchain or building on top of the blockchain, it's not entirely clear, and I think it sometimes can be misleading. So yes, we are using Solana, we're using Ethereum, we're essentially kind of using it as a platform for the
Yes,
product. It's but not exactly.
exactly.
Yes, but anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, that's and that goes for every platform. Like when you use a ML kit, for example, on device ML kit, you think that, oh, I have to do machine learning myself, but that's not usually the case. You either use Firebase ML kit or OpenLPR, and there's so many platforms available that has solved and invented that wheel, and you do not need to reinvent that wheel. And that decision of what you can actually use
Right.
from the existing solution, what you need to build, and where the most KPI comes from for the business is a very technical question, and that's where X enabler shines.
That is awesome. And what I think is great is this, is that given the fact that your company is a one-stop shop for many types of projects. So like we said, machine learning, blockchain, AI,
True.
IoT, not every project requires blockchain. So for instance, if you're let's say receiving estimates from a developer company that specializes in blockchain, they're only going to give you blockchain type estimates and solutions. And the
True.
fact of the matter is, not every MVP or project requires it to be run on a blockchain. Keeping in
True.
mind too, blockchain is great, but one of the, I guess you could say, downsides, it requires a tremendous amount of energy output to
True.
really run it and manage it
Yes.
and maintain it. Where otherwise, maybe your project could be built in a leaner way off of something else. So this is why it is great, because I can, let's say, hypothetically go to you. I'll have essentially an overhead view of what is needed or not, which
Exactly.
is great. So, by the way, let's say as a co-founder and entrepreneur, this will be a good vehicle for me to figure out how do I save money and how do I launch this in the
True.
most in the most effective way. Because if this project does not require a blockchain, I will be dealing with those costs in the future, so to say.
Yes. Yes, and people don't realize that you do not need end-to-end solution to start with.
Right,
Starting a startup is like running a vehicle. You might have an engine which is really great, but
right,
with the steering, you might be even steering with your hands. To be honest, uh,
right,
uh,
exactly.
and give you a classic example. I know one company. They started booking system, and what they were doing behind the scene is they put like a delay that, okay, if you put a booking request, it gets processed in 8 hours. And behind the scene, to test their idea, what they were doing is every time they received the request, they were manually calling the facility, asking that can we make a booking for this, and then confirming it to the person back
Wow.
to validate that yes, there is a need and people will actually use it, and then go to a place where, okay, if they can book it, they were targeting the facility that people actually wanted to book, rather than go door knocking or to all the
Right,
facilities and find out that, okay, they signed up 1,000 facilities that nobody wants. uh, so with technology is the same thing. Everybody wants chat, video calling in their app,
right,
but they're off the shelf SDKs. There are platforms like Zoom or those you can integrate with, and your first version doesn't need to build everything together. And
right.
that's where, you know, as they say, build, borrow, or like
Sure.
use kind of thing is comes in place where people need the technological know-how or
Right,
technological advice, saying yes, in the first version it will work like this, still solve the customer problem, and then eventually it will evolve. And also with the analytics and all, you get the idea like what you should be doing
right,
actually.
right.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what sparked your interest in blockchain originally? The reason why I asked this, everybody
Yeah.
I know who's been on this show, everybody's had their own type of journey and adventure
Yes.
getting
True.
into this space. So being who you are and being
Yeah.
well versed in all these other subject
Mhm.
matters, uh, how did you get into it?
So I came to know about Bitcoin and blockchain in 2013 when it came out of as a research paper. It wasn't even a
Oh,
platform
right.
back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, that's right.
You know it. And
Yes.
one of my friend was talking about this, and we started looking into it. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay, so what is and it is a complex piece of like algorithm and the infrastructure that it takes a while to get your head around like
Right.
why and what is going on and so on. So I did that study, and then it was back in my mind. And then I was always following like what is happening in blockchain or cryptos and NFTs or
Right.
different smart contracts and DeFi, and everything came together. And then eventually the idea was that, okay, look, this is very promising. And then you start thinking about the use cases, and crypto is very one use case of blockchain. But as you mentioned with your app as well, like Yelp kind of like
Right.
authenticity and trust in a non-trusted environment is
Right.
a huge problem, not just in currency itself, but you think about laws, smart contracts, think about finance, think about health, where people are not having one identity that can be shared across all. If you are overseas, you had some disease and someone is treating you, it will be
Right.
very handy to find all that you have, like the problems or allergies, anything that you have. And
Right.
that is very important. And people don't realize that blockchain can actually do that for them. Like you don't need a single authenticated provider to have your health information. You can
Right.
literally distribute in a untrusted environment and still
Right.
be sure that it won't be infringed, it won't be
Exactly.
misused, because you can track all the usage of it.
Right. Yeah, every node will have it, and it is immutable, unalterable. It's
Yes,
like it's like pages in a book. If you start ripping
exactly.
out pages of the book, it's going to lose meaning, and it's going to be very, very noticeable.
True.
To say the very least. So, as of recent, business proposals and projects that come your way, what have you been working on in terms of non fungible tokens?
So I guess NFT is definitely like the booming market right now. NFT
Yeah.
marketplaces, and that's probably the one of the biggest one in different and some of very interesting use cases where the people in the past hasn't been able to sign up by big companies and be known to other people, and
Right.
those artists are signing through NFT marketplaces to it can be using your music or using the actual digital art or anything like that. But that industry is transforming. And I think one of your episode was about the fashion startup that was doing the NFT marketplace. And
Right. Yeah.
amazing, all this creativity is now having a playing field, and the sky is the limit. It's like
Right.
for people how when Instagram came or when Facebook came, they started getting recognized as a social influencer, as a marketer, which had no way of getting there if there wasn't a common platform. And
Right.
NFT is doing that for all the artists, which is great. So that's
Yeah.
one of the common use cases. The smart contract, like I said, the identity, health identity, or
Very important.
wallets, and one very common use case is a rewards program. So you know
Right.
how you want to reward the reviews. Think about like frequent flyer or anything just goes on blockchain completely, that you have
Right.
your rewards point centralized system like Visa or anything, where your reward points can be added and used. So you don't have to create your own platform. There's a public rewards program, anybody can contribute and anybody can
Right.
utilize. And that means all you have to do is basically sign up as consumer or provider, and then your rewards are there and you can access suppliers across the world.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to know is this, and just to backtrack a little, it's great that you made the distinction as far as building on top of a blockchain versus building a blockchain.
True.
So
Yes.
this question is related, but it's about NFTs. So for instance, if the average person creates an NFT, they're most likely using Ethereum as gas, and they're
Yes.
using some website like OpenSea.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I guess my question would be, how feasible is it to actually create a platform like OpenSea? Is it a massive thing, or is it maybe simpler than maybe one thinks? Because like I look at OpenSea, this is a very vast, impressive collection of artists, from
Yes,
everywhere, and a lot of money is going through this website
true,
every single day. But I will say, it's a good website, but it's not the most sophisticated thing I've ever seen
true.
before either.
Yes,
So I was
yeah.
kind of wondering, to build, let's say, an NFT platform, how much work or how little work would probably be required, in your opinion?
So if you are building the NFT platform, the price is again as a very rough like number in the air. Most of the solution starts from around like 200, 300,000, and sky is the limit, right?
Right.
But the idea basically is how big is your community target. So
That's a very good point.
Belinda
Yeah.
isn't here, but she can definitely advocate that the platform is only as good as people on it. So you need to
Agreed.
cater for that scale. If you just build a platform and you don't have enough user, you are not really getting ROI, because
Right.
you are then building something for a very small use case, and you
Right.
can't justify the cost. But with OpenSea is a classic example. It's such a vast community that
Right.
per transaction cost goes really low and affordable level, and that's why people try to, even if it is a subpar experience, they do use that. So uh, I think if you want to build it, you need to, like, everybody starts with a business case and then goes into technology and
Right.
then goes into, okay, so now I have a business case, I have a technological idea, like, okay, this roughly, like, let's say, like, number in the air 500,000 it's gonna cost. And then
Right.
you go, all right, so I got the money, I got the business, how I'm gonna sell it, how am I gonna get million user on it,
Right.
get known, because it's a crowded market. Let's be honest,
Yeah.
it's a very crowded market. So how do you build that trust in the community and expand it is
Right.
as big question as how do you build it.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that. And as far as metaverse projects, have you
Okay.
been getting a lot of those proposals coming your way too?
We haven't started yet, but that's where, like, so as a company, our 2022 goal is to become a blockchain powerhouse. So we
All
are
right.
actually we are actually hiring blockchain developers, like literally 10 a month. So we are, and there are not many in the
That's
world. So
good.
what we are doing is we are finding people who are either very good developer or have done blockchain projects or have theoretical knowledge, putting them on a like a development team, a
Right.
blockchain, how do you say, enthusiast groups, sort of.
Right.
So we are hiring actively to, we want to set up a 50 to 100 developer team dedicated for blockchain,
Awesome.
covering all the area. And we're going to launch it somewhere in January, or between January and March. So it hasn't come out yet on a marketing and all that, but that's what we are heading towards, that to become that one step blockchain powerhouse, where you can come and throw your idea and say, okay,
Right.
can it be done, how it can be done, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take, and then have your very trusted technology partner who can guide you through the process.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, listen, I'll definitely keep my eyes peeled. I'm very excited to see what you have in store over the next 6 to 9 months with this. I think
Yeah,
that
and
is awesome. You may want to consider doing something in Miami, as Miami is now essentially the crypto and
we are
blockchain
actually,
capital
so
in the U.S.
we
Yeah.
are based in Australia, but we are actually, like, shifting our attention towards US very much, because that's the
Awesome.
place to be, right? And there's a lot of things happening in US, in California, in Miami, in New York as well,
Right.
around blockchain, and it's a great community, and I connected with so many people, and I'm actually getting more inquiries from US than Australia. Mind it.
Wow, that's great. I'm not surprised
So
either.
so we are like I said, our model is that we don't want to just completely set up offshore. So we have team in India, but we will be setting up team in USA. We already have team in Australia. So it will be a hybrid model where people can work with the technology people onshore, and then those people can, like, basically define the solution, define what needs to be done, and the coding practices, and then it leverages the offshore larger market to get the speed and scale that they need.
That is awesome. And whenever you decide to make that trip to either New York or Miami, please, by all means, let me know. And if there's anything
Definitely.
I could do to help out as
No,
well,
definitely. It will be next year for sure.
awesome. Very much looking forward to that.
Sounds
So
good.
if you saw, as everybody saw on LinkedIn, so one of the major themes of this episode was going to be where's the money at in non-fungible tokens. So we're
So,
looking at non-fungible token art, NFT art. Some of these very highly
sorry.
esteemed, no worries. Some of these very highly esteemed artists are selling, I guess you could say, their NFT art for in the tens of millions at least.
Yes.
Is there a higher mountain peak as far as profitability than NFT art? Because it seems like NFT art is really occupying the main focus, and rightfully so. A tremendous amount of money is
Yes.
moving through this space. But
True.
from your background and from some of the projects and proposals that come your way, do you think
Mhm.
there's a higher mountain peak than that? Is there something that's probably
I
potentially
wouldn't
more
be
profitable?
surprised. Like, put
Yeah,
it that way, I wouldn't be surprised if it crosses that, and it will definitely cross it. I'm pretty sure it will cross it. Like, and this is what I did like last year, because when we started with NFT marketplaces and art and all that, and
yeah,
although, like, I appreciate art, I do not understand art, to be honest. And I had to consult a couple of people who are dealing in art industry, and
right,
find out, like, how, like, what is the story behind art. One profound thing they said is that marketplaces are just a means to connect the artist to the audience, but
right,
what really sells the art is the story behind it. What was the inspiration, like,
right,
how it got created, what are the elements. And if you look at all the PR companies in art world, they are not selling art, they are selling story behind the art, and that's where the money gets
very good point.
created. All right, so sky is the
Yes,
limit, and I'm pretty sure the number that we have gonna be topped up, even, like, in near future, or might as well while we talk here. And but it's how profound the story is important to hit that, like, money. If someone is actually considering, okay, should I buy that NFT or not, or
right,
is it valuable or not, I would say, like, how big is the how profound is the story
right,
behind it. Go for that. You see all these photography contest and art contest and everything.
right,
What really resonates is the story that people can resonate with. It's like Simon Sinek says, start with your why. If
right.
people can
That's
resonate
right.
with your why, then you got a connection, and then there is no limit.
Wow, very well said. I have to say. And by the way, that explanation of NFT art, essentially the story behind it, I've heard that from many other NFT art entrepreneurs in this space as well. So this is definitely a resounding theme. So kind of dovetailing off of that, it seems like from a pure business point of view, if you're an NFT artist, or even if you want to create some sort of NFT platform, you
Yes,
need to have some sort of community first. So it doesn't seem like you can just
definitely.
kind of take a shot in the dark and hope it works. So it seems like you kind of also have to be an influencer to an extent before really seriously launching like some of this stuff. Because I noticed a lot of NFT artists, they'll have a Telegram page, they'll be on Discord, they'll be on Clubhouse. There
Yes.
seems to be a recipe of success
Yeah.
for at least the beginning stages of this. Would it be fair to say?
And to be honest, art is probably the pinnacle of it, where your stories have more important than, like, no, I wouldn't say more important, but as important as your work. But
Right,
if you even go in any industry, so if you are an artist looking to set up an NFT art based marketplace and anything, I guess, look at what are you selling, like, why are you selling. So
right,
things like tribal arts, or
right.
in India, the heritage is very like, famous. We have, like, huge heritage, thousands of year old
Oh, right.
statues and
Yeah,
all that. and
absolutely.
and it's just amazing, and the stories around that. I know there is a company in South India that became Pixar partner like years ago, and the whole thing they did was, all the people who were designing the idols by hand, they
Wow,
trained them digitally, and then that became a big thing, because they already had a skill, they just used a different mean
wow.
to create that, and it became a very big company, and a Disney and a Pixar partner, and probably I think it's called Maya Studio or something. I don't remember the name, but it became really big. And NFT is same. If you are an artist, this is a new mean that you can utilize to
Right.
get that, you know, a bigger community, established community transaction where you don't have to be controlled by the distributor to sell your arts. You don't have to be limited that, okay, I wouldn't be known if unless someone makes me known. You can take
Right.
your step like in people did on Instagram and become that known person, known artist and a famous person
Right.
that can get known. So platform is there for you to utilize, jump on with what you have, and take it from there.
That is awesome. And I think it's great that you mentioned Indian art, especially India being one of the ancient civilizations, along with the Persians and the ancient Chinese and the Sumerians. There is a wealth of material to work with as far as
Yes.
Indian art. So I'm really excited to see what's going to be coming out. And also, India has really positioned itself as being very ambitious and probably one of the next, I think, leaders in this space as well, as far as blockchain and projects and use cases
Yeah.
coming out of the country. So I'm
True. I
very
mean,
excited.
the technology is really picking up in India. Like it's nowhere near in China or US at this moment, but it's accelerating at a very rapid speed. And given the IT talent that is there in India, it's really fueling it up. So I'm really sure in next 10 years we'll see some really good big companies coming out of India in this space.
Wow, that's great. And moving on from that, this is a programming question. So, is there a whole lot of difference between creating a crypto token versus an NFT token as far as like difficulty? Is one harder than the other, or is it relatively, the same?
Like they're all as I said before, like right now you are utilizing the platform, so you
Right,
basically just do some configuration and you can get the token out. So
right,
the platform you use is actually built for a certain kind of token, so you need to choose the platform that suits best of your need. And you mentioned Solana versus Solidity, and it's a classic example where they have a very different use cases, where Solana is targeted at large transaction and
right,
low cost consensus or low cost generation of the token, versus Solidity is high value complex algorithm and computing power token. So definitely, in terms of, if we put it in terms of like number of computing power, definitely Solidity is more wealthy than Solana transaction. But then how it goes in a market value is a completely different thing. So complexity wise, I guess you are looking at very similar thing, depending on the platform, doing configuration, putting the contract and the algorithm that you want on top of that, and doing that together.
right.
But it's the application you build on top of that that adds the complexity. And around for so long, the off the shelf tools are available, while NFT is still getting there. So probably in comparison of how much you can utilize that is already there, you will get more in crypto.
Awesome. And to add
And
to that, I would preface it like this to the audience. So most of the time, your project is going to be built on top of a blockchain. So if we can all imagine this like a cake. So the blockchain is going to really be the base. And what's going to be in the
yes,
base? It's going to be sugar, it's going to be eggs, and a few other ingredients. The
true.
additional layers, the first and second layers and side chains, that's really going to be more of the decoration and the
True.
style of
Yes.
of that cake slash the use case of what your project is going to ultimately be. So that's an analogy, I'd like to throw out there as
Yes.
far as kind of
True.
conceptualizing this. But
Yes.
moving on off of that, there's been many talks, especially with all these blockchains coming out, of the Ethereum killer. Now, Ethereum is notorious for large gas prices and transaction speeds.
Yes.
Do you think another blockchain can replace Ethereum as the DApp blockchain to use? Because I'm struggling to come up with an answer for this. Because on one hand, it seems like 90% of the industry, most of these applications that we see are built off of Ethereum in
Yes.
some way or shape. On the other hand, Solana has really proven itself as a very solid contender, even at this very early stage. So, do you think Ethereum can be replaced, or is Ethereum just kind of too big to be replaced ultimately?
Your struggle is rightly placed, because even I would, if I have to answer, I think we are too, we are not enough in future to answer that.
Yeah, it's
It's
still
probably
quite
the right
early.
say, and like you said, it's too big to kill. It's the industry de facto at the moment, and
Right,
the applications and the value it has given is profound, and I don't think it can be taken away.
right,
And if you go back to the blockchain's whole definition, it's a contract you can't kill. So
right,
if you can if you can kill Ethereum, I'd be surprised.
right, right,
But yes, there will be, like, I think what will happen is there will be more use case explored, and for a
right,
certain use case, other technology and other platform might gain more traction and control, and
right.
attraction. But I don't think Ethereum is going away, not at least anytime soon. But yes, I'm pretty sure other platform will gain some momentum and will become a good contender or the competitors to that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And kind of going off of that, programming languages, since X Enabler is going to be rapidly expanding over the next year, and you're going to be hiring more developers, and also
Yes.
given the fact that this is a very, very new space, we are still kind of in the infant and toddler stages of this
Yes.
industry right now. When you're hiring a programmer, a developer, what coding languages are you looking for? What types of projects and
So
experiences are you looking for?
yeah. So mainly, like, of course, if you have blockchain experience, that's probably the fundamental thing. Yes, that's a great. But what we look for, the talent is more about like their skill in analytical and programmatical skill, because blockchain
Right,
is quite new. If you are dreaming that you're gonna find 50 blockchain developer who want to work with you, you are dreaming. So we're gonna train
right,
people. We're gonna train people in blockchain who has knowledge and some experience in blockchain, and become that blockchain developer that we want, because that's the
right,
only way you can do right now. Like Solana just came out last year. If you are asking, I need a developer with 3 year Solana experience,
right,
you're not gonna find one. If the
right.
developer
Yeah,
knows that Solana exists, you are lucky. But what we want is basically you have background in either one of the programming language or some project in blockchain, and you have a very strong understanding what blockchain is. And that's the base that we are setting. And then on top of that, whatever is needed, we will be training them and going through expand. But I can give you some snapshot. The 5 developers we hired so
sure.
far
Yeah, that'd be great.
is they have done like number of NFT and crypto projects, so
Right,
they do understand, like, how blockchain works, how to configure them, and everything. They've been doing that over the 3-4 years, which is great. But the idea main is their analytical skill were there, like they were able to explain why they did something, why
right,
that particular platform was used, why they had to do it in a certain way during that particular time, because it constantly changes. And that's very important question that one can
right.
answer.
And for anybody who's an aspiring developer out there,
Yes.
naturally there's going to be a huge demand for
Yes.
blockchain developers. And I think we're
True.
already seeing it already.
Hmm.
If you go on LinkedIn or any of these other job sites,
Yeah.
what programming languages would you recommend to somebody completely new to programming? Like whether it's
As
Java or whether it's React or maybe something else off the top of your head.
I mean, start with Solidity as well, and
Okay.
go in, like, if you haven't done programming ever, at least understand the basic programming using like C++ or any fundamental
Right.
OOPS or any languages, and then see how you can grasp the languages and practice. Because most of the time, what developers fail to do is they learn the syntax and everything, but they don't understand the design principles behind it,
I've
and
heard
they're
that
more,
before from
yeah,
yeah.
and they're more likely to make mistakes, because
Right.
they know how to use the tool. They will basically end up using spanner as a hammer, and that, you don't want that.
Right. Yeah, it seems to me,
Yeah.
and another very experienced developer said actually what you're saying and likened it to kind of missing the forest for the trees. So, some
Yes.
developers can only see the trees and really not understand maybe the
The
overall theme
forest.
of what they're
True.
working on. So, I think that's great that you brought up that point. as well. And since you're
Cool.
based out of Australia, what's the tech AI blockchain environment like over there?
It is picking up very rapidly. So DeFi, our ASX just like had a like a launch of DeFi in ASX last
Yeah,
year, and they are making a lot of buzz about it. So I would be dreaming when stock exchange goes distributed. That will just be like like a massive change. And
right,
obviously the banks are getting attention. Law firms. I remember one of the law firm decided that all the contracts will now be blockchain driven and digital. So it's picking up in all the spaces that you can think of. Healthcare, the universities having research project how to do that healthcare identity on blockchain and so
right.
on. So various industries, various use cases, and it's picking momentum rapidly.
Wow, that's great to hear. And I think given where we are in history in 2021, I'm also a father as well. I'm thinking to myself, I think coding and programming should be one of the biggest majors. That really seems like A, that's where the future's at, and B, that's where the salaries are at is
Yeah,
as well. You know,
yeah,
uh
yeah.
yeah,
I had a very good discussion saying if you want to go in future, just learn psychology and statistics and coding. If you can understand human psyche, because we are generating so many data, so many platform,
right.
what is useful and what is not is getting blurred. So if you see a lot of these new practices are habit building apps, useful
Oh,
data,
yes, habit building apps.
dashboard,
Those are very
every
popular.
everything is about understanding the human psyche and ignoring the data that doesn't really give you useful information. And blockchain is no different. What you should put on blockchain and what you should not is basically the question.
Right. And going off that, what do you think of gamification? A lot of these habit building apps are including that now. Like, for instance, Habitica, for instance,
Yeah,
they essentially use like these 8-bit
yeah,
Nintendo looking sprites and characters.
yeah,
And you
yeah.
essentially unlock different like abilities and weapons and, attributes and things like that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, gamification is definitely the area of blockchain because the concept of reward is so embedded in games, and
Right.
that basically is what blockchain is. Like, if you want to put the rewarding and the transparency and the points, like imagine you have like people competing to buy crypto, and that's what crypto market currently is. The prices are going up because there are more old people jumping on it.
Right.
If and all these are, even though in the financial sector they are gamers. So if you can gamify using the blockchain, no doubt about that, that's a probably
Right.
recipe to success.
Awesome. Well, listen,
Yeah,
Prashant, it was an absolute pleasure having you on. We covered so much ground within a relatively small amount of time, especially as far as coding. So I hope, as far as viewership, I think we summarized a lot of the fundamentals, to say the very least. So I would encourage anybody to watch and rewatch this particular episode if one is interested in getting into, some sort of programming developer role in blockchain. So Prashant, we have to do a part 2 of this
yep.
episode in the
and
future, to say the very
definitely,
least.
and if they are looking to become blockchain developer, please DM me. I'm interested to talk
Absolutely.
to them. Yeah,
Perfect.
thank
Prashant,
you.
thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks,
All
Adam.
right.
Thanks for
Enjoy your
having me.
day.
Yep,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.